Welcome back to Exploring Distant Worlds, where our war with the Durvalla hive continues, and we're going to be skipping around a bit in time, looking at some key events as they transpire. Now, this fleet over here, I still have no idea where they're going, what they're up to, but I guess I don't really care. In here, in Durvalla itself, we have an interesting development because the Holtumu Federation, the Akdarians, have begun to come in here. They've got a transport, and they've got a cruiser here, and they've got a frigate, and they're beginning to throw their weight around a bit, along with us as we clean up the few remaining bases that are in here. I find this interesting because the Akdarians still only have between a half and a third of the total military force that the Gazurians have, but they are still trying to do what they can. Now, what I'm up to is I'm sending off a few groups of ships here to just small groups of the size we'd normally use as a garrison fleet, if you will, in a system, to Yomos here, and then over here to, we can't even hardly see the name of the system, but Yerfunia, and also one over here to Gazuria. And we just want to see what's in there and what can we take easily and just gradually whittle them down while our ground forces continue to build up. 5 months further on, and there have been some more developments in the war. Holtumu Federation and Durvalla Hive have made peace, so it's only a two-sided war. They are out of it. I was a little surprised at this because they recaptured some of their territory, such as this system, but they didn't take Vuse back over here. I thought they might try to do that first. And I, of course, was enjoying the fact that they were helping us, even though we didn't need it. But it's really not that surprising if you consider it from their point of view. They have an opportunity for making peace with an aggressive, much more powerful empire. They don't know how long we're going to hang out in this war. So it does make sense from the Akdarian side too, I think. Now, we did also have one other development, and we're very lucky this didn't happen earlier. But we had a change of leadership. Guru Kalan is no longer around, is no longer the leader of the Akuro Commonwealth. After almost 3 decades in charge, we move on to Bam Prafarian, and a new leader just gets generated, and they can be great, they can be terrible. I'm not going to dismiss any of these. I'm just going to sort of ride with them as they come and take it as the ebb and flow of the game. But we can see we've got, okay, energetic, courageous. We've got some population growth, some troop recruitment, some more weariness. It definitely could be worse. But obviously, Prafarian not nearly as skilled as was Guru Kalan. So we did get a nice bump to happiness everywhere. And we also got a bump to our war weariness, which the war weariness, it just was a small reduction in what we had. It didn't really help us that much. But the happiness side, it made all of our planets happy. Even, well, Slosvan, not quite there, but doing much happier than it was. It greatly improved the mood of everybody that we had just captured, and they were worried about us having conquered them recently. So that's a nice little bit to boost our harmony. And we don't really care about this fleet, hitting our mining stations. We can deal with that at any time. Now, in here in the areas that we have actually gone and discovered, basically, Yomos is a nice, weak area for the picking, and so is Yerfunia. But Gazuria is reinforced pretty heavily. There's a strong spaceport there. I'm going to need to send another fleet out. Now, our primary fleet is actually in the process of refueling right now. It made it back to Reese. So once that's done, it'll come back out here. It'll smash this. We'll probably send our second fleet back to refuel, etc. So we're going to capture these two, and then Gazuria and Durvalla, of course, going to take a little bit more time. However, if we sort of want to jump in here to our invaders fleet, because it's worth looking at them as well. We have built up quite a bit, and our ground troops are pretty highly regarded. So if we take a look at that, they have a total strength of just over 1 million. Now, the strength on Ridri, the Durvalla capital, is just under 800k. So we're at the point, and I need to move some more troops around, get some more up to the front, get pacifying troops in there, because it isn't just enough to win. We have to have enough troops left over to prevent rebellions. But we are getting close to the point where we could say, okay, any defenses they have, we're ready to invade them and take them over. So all of that is looking very well for us at the moment. If you'll bear with me for a bit, there's a hodgepodge of observations here that I thought were interesting. Endosan, the Shandar planet here, they are just always super happy, and we've got their taxes at 100% now, and they are simply still smiling. But if we look at Brax, They have slightly more population, tax is just over half that level, but their income is more than 6 to 1 higher than Endosan because of the difference in the planet quality. So it just shows you how important that is, and just the profit skyrockets on higher quality planets. Then if we look at Reese, I want to take a look at our troops here because there's some really strange things with loading and unloading troops. So if we zoom down here, we've got 1 armor there. Okay, this makes 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 armor, and 1 special forces ready to be loaded. And we're going to take a look at our ship here, which is about to load them up. But I gave the order to load this when it was way over at Halmat 2. And that's going to cause me a bit of a problem here. So let's watch what happens. See how much of this it's actually going to load. Just got to get a little bit closer. There we go. Well, instead of loading 8 armor and 1 special forces, it loaded 6 armor. Let's go back to Reese and make sure we confirm there's still more there. Yep, they sure are. What happens? Well, when you give the order to load, it doesn't matter where the ship is. It will determine what it's going to load at that point. Not when it shows up at the planet to see what's actually there. So what we're going to have to actually do is give this another order to load these troops and finally get them all. Much better just move your ship there and load them that way. Now, another interesting thing is that if we just select the fleet by itself, we actually have a really big problem trying to unload troops on a friendly planet. We can have them attack an enemy planet, as we've seen, but if we try to unload these just by taking the fleet and right-clicking, well, nope, not going to give me that option. It's just not going to let me do it. I can load troops, I can move there, I can patrol, but I can't unload them. Now, if I just select the ship, watch what happens. Oh, now you can unload them. How nice. So there's really some ornery manipulation there, and I don't think either one of those has to be that way. Like, there's some problems with just designing a good UI when the game's complex, but why couldn't you have it decide to load the troops when it gets to the planet? Like, determine which ones are loadable then. Why couldn't you have that context menu show unloading the troops for both the fleet and the individual ship options? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Now, if we look about over here, we have an interesting situation where we just took over Jomos, and we previously grabbed the planet in Euphania. So we're going to be sending our ships momentarily, because the main fleet's almost there, into Gazuria, where we'll have a little bit more of a combat. We'll probably pop back into that. But notice the shape of the circle compared to the planet. Like, normally it's equal on all sides, but here we've got a much larger reach out this way than we do towards the middle. And that, of course, is because of how powerful the territorial influence is of what they have in Durvalla and Gazuria. So we can see in here as well, same effect, much more towards the outside of the territory than towards the inside. So those little things, and the fact that, we're totally surrounded, these areas we have our territory, but it's totally surrounded by enemy territory, I find that interesting. Also, we had some very bad news from Ubas. So we're going to pop down in here. And of course, this is Carabia, where our Carabian spice is. Or should I say was, because it ran out. The deposit bad event ran out there. All we have left is Waconium. So we still have the other 2 super luxury resources. We still have a lockdown on the galactic economy and everything, but it's not as good as it was. We're going to have to watch our tax levels, because as our Carabian spice runs out, I'm thinking we're going to have some less happy and definitely some less developed planets with not quite the economy that they are currently having. And then a final little note, if we look at our explored planets, it's all of them. We have explored every system in the galaxy. Now, we do still need to hunt down some ruins, because there are systems that, for example, the Keterovs explored and they gave us the knowledge of them, but they didn't explore the ruins there. So we want to make sure that we hit up all of those and know what all of those are. I'll get to that after the war. But in terms of just mapping it all, that is finished. And so all the interruptions from exploration ship has finished its mission, are pretty much done with at this stage. We have ourselves a good news, bad news situation. In the good news, we have our main fleet here in Gazuria, and soon we will commence the attack. But we've got to deal with the bad news first. The Gazurian fleets, we really haven't had to concern ourselves with them, but we've got a strange situation going on. The 8th fleet over here, we don't really care. There's 2 ships. It's almost decimated, and that's going to be coming in here to Yerfunia. We should be able to smash them away. So the 10th fleet, their largest fleet, one of their 2 that are actually worth noting, they're going to refuel over here in Indor. Okay, no problem there. Now, their 4th fleet is, though, on its way to Zagaba. Normally it wouldn't be a problem. We have a defensive group of ships there to garrison it, but they are out of fuel. They've been out of fuel for a while. I thought I was going to get away with it. Clearly I'm not. So I have them coming back to Halmat 2 to refuel. There's plenty of fuel there. It's a small group, so we should be able to get away with that. And then I have our 2nd fleet that still has a little bit of fuel left. They're going to come over here, fight that off, and they'll have to come all the way back to Reese and refuel themselves. Okay, so a little bit, uncomfortable situation, but nothing we can't handle. But the real issue is why we are having trouble getting fuel there. And that is because the civilians are stupid. I almost wonder if they're trying to sabotage us. Now, they've redirected some of their transport lines. This one down here doesn't bother me that much. It's just going, to Urktun, and so we don't have this connection here. We don't have this connection here that we used to have. Okay. But they don't want to come out here to Halmat 2 from Kerbis. They want to go all the way around here through these spaceports that don't have very high priority and therefore taking forever to refill and everything, even when we have freighters. I mean, the Slos Van 1 is still building up. These just recently built up. It's really annoying me that they've decided to do that, but they're cutting this off for whatever stupid reasons that they may have. So we're going to take another solution. If we look down in Zagaba, a lot of players, I mentioned this I think earlier in the game, will perhaps just take the approach of building really big gas mining stations on a planet such as this. And we have Castellan and hydrogen. This is the best one. There's Castellan in one other location in the system. But, if you don't want to abuse the big gas mining ships like that and just throw a bunch of fuel cells on them, then there is the other option that we talked about before, which is the refueling ships. And I'm actually going to use those now. Resupply ships. I'm calling mine the refueler. Haven't had the occasion before, but here we go. So one thing to note is I don't have to keep the size at 500. I'm just doing it. It's a nice round number. I think this is going to work okay. But we build these on the planet, not on the spaceport. So like the colonization ships and the construction ships, they can be as big as we feel like making them. Now, to have our resupply ship, you need to have 20% of the size tied up in docking bays, cargo bays, and gas extractors. You can see we're using the massive cargo bays for the first time. And so we've got all the basic components on for everything else, but the 4 gas extractors, and then the key part is splitting the rest. How do we want to divide it up between docking bays and cargo bays? Now, having more ships dock at once would be great, but we have 8 in our smaller fleet. So unless we needed to dock a big fleet, we would be able to handle them all at once, and having to delay a bit to dock one and then another one, not the end of the world really, unless it's a big weight. Then the cargo bay, well, we have 20,800 capacity. And the way these work is they will harvest the hydrogen and the Castellan from a gas giant. They'll reserve half of their cargo for each of those, no matter which fuel you want. It's just going to make sure that you can dock either one, and you can't switch that. But it's not going to go after any krypton, any argon, anything else that might be present on the planet. So just the 2 fuels, hydrogen and Castellan. We get about 10,000 out of this. That's enough to refill one of our smaller guard fleets, maybe 3 to 4 times. It's only enough to probably get about half, I'm going to estimate, of one of our larger fleets. But if we build a number of these and put them in some good locations, I think we could be okay. At least it'll definitely help extend our fuel range to deal with the situation until the freighters decide to catch up and until our civilian sector decides to get its act in order and not actively sabotage us. So I'm going to build a number of those. I also want to build some more combat ships while I'm at it. So let's see. Let's get to... Yeah, okay. There's Reese. And there's our refueler. And so we will build a bunch of them. Hunter of Kerbis for a resupply ship? I think not. And then we'll come over to the spaceport and spam ourselves out. And I'm basically splitting between the carriers and the patrol frigates now just because I want to be able to have a mix of those in the future. And then we will see what happens now in Gazuria, and once we get some of those ships out, we'll actually be able to deploy them and hopefully be in a better fuel situation. So where is our... there it is. And over here, they've got a research base, but they've got this one orbital defense area, and then they've got their spaceport. So we'll just hop in here. We got all kinds of fighters about, but we can deal with them. We've proven that many times. Away goes their ships. And now in comes ours. And we're going to knock this out quickly enough that I'm just going to right now go ahead and bring in our transports. So let's find a decent place on the planet. There it is. Attack the planet. Okay. Of course, this is not going to be subtle. There we go. Now we're going to handle the main spaceport. And it's worth noting here that we don't really have to worry nearly as much about our ships blowing up in the big explosions as we used to. Because we simply have tougher ships with a larger size, better armor, better shields. We can absorb a lot of that. Bingo. So we started out with 55 ships, and we still have 55. So all we got is a bunch of damage. Yeah, Marine frigates, the one that we're really close in. And again, we don't really care that much about the Marine frigates anymore. So all of that appears to be going well. Yes, thank you for your money, Patrine Corporation. So let's make sure that our attackers are actually coming. They are. They're running in here now. Look at the resupply ships finishing already, the first one. Incredible. Okay, I think... Yep, you have landed. Let's take a look at this, because this one's actually going to be a battle. Look at our bonuses. Well, they get a bonus because of the planet type. Native planet type for them, it's not native planet type for us. Okay. We get troop generals, and armored breakthrough, and overwhelming odds, and special operations. So to add to the fact that we already badly outnumbered them, now most of it you can see is from population. They do have a bit of military here in terms of a few infantry groups. But we're actually going to have to fight them. Like, this isn't just a land and the battle's over type of thing. Hey, another 25% from space control. That one always waits a bit until after the battle starts. I've always thought that was a little bit strange. But in any case... onward we go. You can see us advancing. Their numbers going down. Whole bunch of carriers finish. You can see how fast those finish. And look at this. New ability for our Empire. Minus 35% ship maintenance. Now, with all the ships we have, that's like a 1,400... 1,400 isn't the right amount. About 140,000 cash flow bonus for us per year. And I don't know the exact level, but you get these racial abilities once you have a planet with a sufficient population of that race. Anybody who knows the details on that, go and let me know down in the comments. I've heard different numbers floated around, but I can't find a documentation of it. In any case, that's obviously going to be a big benefit for us, along with grabbing this rather large planet. You can see the population well over 7 billion. And that sort of carries into our next bit of an issue. Because, hey, it's great we got a planet with a bunch of population, right? Well, we have to pacify it. And the general rule of thumb that I'm going by for pacifying the planet is I want to have 2 infantry per billion population. Well, that's not been a problem on the lower populated ones. Now, it's a little bit more of one. Because we don't even have that many infantry. We have, I think, 8 with this particular group. Of course, all kinds of armor, but we need to bring up more ground troops, and we need to be able to sort everything around so that we can free up our armor I'm mostly focusing on infantry right now and recruiting. We think we have plenty of armor to carry out the rest of our invasions for this war. But we need to, free the armor up from garrison duty so that we can use it to attack our next victim, which of course will be crashing into the capital of Ridri and the Durvalla system and the other planets that are there. At least we've gotten some more territory here. And hey, look, it's our old friends, the Dark Minerals. Let's see how they're doing. Oh, they still suck. They have no military ships whatsoever. They have no controlled colonies. So I'm thinking probably when that base goes down, the Dark Minerals probably going to cease to exist. They literally have some shadow of facility in there, and that's about it. In any case, this is, I think, a good breaking point. We're going to be working on getting the ground troops around and getting our resupply ships deployed and refueling everybody. And hopefully, we will come out of the other side of that just ready to mop up the rest of this war. There's going to be another round of research coming up soon. Lots of fun things happening. And I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what happens when we finish conquering the Durvalla. So that'll be coming up soon. Thanks for watching. Exploring Distant Worlds will continue.